Hey everybody, I'm here to do a tag video for you all today. This is called the Opposites book tag. I was not tagged by anybody to do it, and it's actually been on BookTube for a little while now. I just happened to come across it, and I really like the idea of it, so I wanted to do it myself. I believe the original creator of this tag is actually a Portuguese booktuber. So there are 10 questions to answer, and I have all of the books in my answers splayed out here in front of me. So question number one is the first book in your collection and the last book you bought. So I don't keep a lot of like the older books that I used to have as a kid. So this was really the only one I could find that I think I still own from way back when. And that is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, the paperback, which I got it soon after coming out in paperback, you know, when the last book came out. So I haven't had this since childhood because I think the last book came out after I was out of high school. So I've had this book in my collection since 2007. So yes, this is the first one. Like I said, I don't typically keep my old books. I did have more volumes of Harry Potter that I had when I actually was younger, and I've recently traded them in for newer hardback editions at the used bookstore, so I no longer have them. It was really sad to give them up, but I wanted those editions. So the other editions were paperback like this, and they were really beat up, so I had to give it up. And then the most recent book that I purchased is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, and I've just been really meaning to pick up one of her books, so I picked it up, and I have not read it yet, but this one I think is going to be really soon, so we have that. Question number two is a cheap book and an expensive book. For my cheap book, I picked Alana by Tamora Pierce. This is book one in the Song of the Lioness Quartet, and I got this used on Amazon for about $2, I believe, and they sent, well, not this particular volume. They actually sent me the wrong volume, and then they gave me volume 4, and then so I reordered this one. So technically I got this one for free, so it's even cheaper than $2, but $2 for both of them, really, if you could say, because I didn't want to count like books that I've been given or got for free from somewhere, so yeah. That one. And not the most expensive that I have, and it is one of the ones that I actually paid full price for, because I have expensive books that I got cheaper online, but this one I got directly from the bookstore, and that is The Martian by Andy Weir, which is $24, which is, again, not the most expensive book that I own, but it is one that I actually paid that price for. So question number three is a book with a male protagonist and a book with a female protagonist. So for the male protagonist, I chose one that I recently read, and that is The Furies of Calderon by Jim Butcher. This is book one in the Codex Alara series. It is technically about Tavi, who is a boy. Do get POVs from other characters in here, but he's technically the main one, so I chose this anyways, so we have that. And then for the female protagonist one, I decided to pick up Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is about a character named Alina, or Alina, yeah. Really awesome YA fantasy if you haven't picked this up. The third one just came out, so yes, now the whole trilogy's out if you're interested. Question number four is a book you read quickly and a book that took you a long time to read. For the book that I read quickly, I picked Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a really awesome adult science fiction adventure story, and I remember borrowing, initially, I haven't actually read this copy of the book. I initially borrowed it from the library, and I read that thing in like, I read most of it on my day off. I think I like had maybe 80 pages left that I finished the next day. So for an adult book with like tinier writing, lettering and stuff, that was pretty fast. So yes, Ready Player One, it's amazing. If you haven't picked it up, please do. And then for a book that took me a long time to read, I picked My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. I know a lot of people like this book. I know a lot of people like it, and I'm just gonna say, take my comments as my opinion, please. This is not saying there's anything wrong with this book. It just was not a book for me, and I tried to make it a book for me. That's all. I have tried to force myself to read it, even though I clearly did not want to read this book. It took me about 2 months to read this, and it's not even a big book. It's not. So, I recently got her newer release too. I don't know why, because like, I don't know. I like to give second chances to authors that I think they deserve. I think everybody deserves a second chance. We'll see. We'll see. Question number 5 is a pretty book cover and an ugly book cover. So for the pretty book cover, I kind of chose one from this series of books that I own, and that is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I just own all of his books in these white UK editions, and they're just gorgeous, and I needed to have them in my life. And Elantris I really like, mostly because green is one of my favorite colors, so green and white together just looks so pretty, just pretty. And then for ugly covers, I'm sorry Kayla if you like the cover for this, but Mistress of Rome by Kate Quinn, just looking at the book just would not be something I would want. It is a romance, historical romance. It is what it looks like, but from the cover, it just looks a lot cheesier than what it. I'm reading this right now, by the way, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really good. But if I had to say, don't judge a book by its cover, this one would be one of them. Like, yes, yeah. I don't know. And just the title alone, like, already I get laughed at when I'm reading this at work. So, with that cover, it just makes it worse. Question number 6 is a national book and an international book. For my national book, well, I live in America, so that was pretty easy. I picked Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is Obsidian, book 1 in her Lux series. She's a very, very, very popular author on BookTube, and I believe she lives in West Virginia currently. So we have that. And then for my international book, I chose Sophie Kinsella. This is I've Got Your Number, which is a really cute adult comedy romance that I actually really enjoy. And that is why I'm showing it, because it's very hard for me to find a comedy romance that I like, just because romance. I gotta have something else. It's gotta have something else in it. But this is very funny. Like, this author is very comedic, so it makes up for that, because I was laughing the whole time. And I think she is from the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she is. Book number 7 is a thin book and a thick book. For the thin book, I chose Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis. This is book 1 in the Space Trilogy, and I have not read it yet, but it's super thin, so I don't know why I haven't tried it. Just, I don't know. Let's see. 152 pages. And for my thick book, I just had to grab one of these, and that is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin. This is book 5 in the Song of Ice and Fire series, and it is, not including the big appendix at the back of the book, it is 1,050 pages. So, pretty thick. I believe book 3 is about 1,200 pages actually, so not the biggest one out of all of them, but still a very, very thick book. Question number 8 is simply a fiction book and a non-fiction book. For the fiction book, I decided to pick one that I don't typically show on my channel. I think I've only shown it in the unboxing that I did for it a long time ago, and I haven't read it yet, and I feel really bad because it's one that I've been really, really wanting to read, and I bought the first 5 books to read it. Anyways, that is Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy. I have the first 5 volumes in this series. I hate this. There's a huge non-sticker on here. That's not a sticker. So I decided for the general question of just picking a fiction book, I've shown you this one just clearly because you haven't really seen it on my channel. But yes, a middle grade fantasy series. And for my nonfiction, I really don't have that many nonfiction at all, but I do have this one. Well, I do have a bunch of textbooks, I guess, but I decided to go with this one, and that is Wonder Book, The Illustrated Guide to Creating Imaginative Fiction by Jeff Vandermeer, and also a bunch of other authors too. It is basically just a book about writing fiction. So yeah, nonfiction book. Question number 9 is a romantic book and an action book. For the romantic book, I chose Pushing the Limits by Katie McGarry. This book really, really surprised me. I super enjoyed it for having it be just a romance. I even like teared up a little bit at one point, and that doesn't happen to me, so that's pretty rare. And yes, so we have this one for romance. And for my action book, what other would I choose than Heroes of Olympus by Rick Riordan? I'm just holding up the first book, but really any of the Percy Jackson books by Rick Riordan are just packed with adventure and good times. And yes, so this is book 1 of the Heroes of Olympus series, The Lost Hero, and it was awesome, and I flew through this in no time. And then finally, question number 10 is a book that made you happy and one that made you sad. So for my happy book, I chose Cress by Marissa Mayer. This is book 3 in the Lunar Chronicles, and it just made me happy because it is, well, I could also put it under adventure. It's just really awesome. I mean, it had a cliffhanger ending. That was cool. Kind of expected it. There's one more book that hasn't been released yet, Winter, that's not till next year. But for what this book was, it was fantastic. And I loved reading it the entire time. I read it super quickly, and it was just so good. So of course it made me very happy. For my sad book, it also made me happy, but it just had really sad moments in it, and that is The Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons. This is one of my favorite books of all time. The emotions that it makes you go through. There are just so many tragic points in this book. I remember there aren't many books that make me cry. I could count there two books have made me cry. Like, some have made me like where I could feel it, you know, you could feel it coming but nothing comes out. But yeah, I've had a few of those, but only 2 books have actually like made me bawl out crying, and the first one was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and the second one was The Bronze Horseman. And Harry Potter made me cry maybe like 2 times in the book. About 2 times, yes. While this book made me cry, I don't even know how many times I teared up in this, but it was very emotional, not gonna lie. But it's still one of my favorite reads, and it's so good, and it also made me really happy. Like, this book makes me happy, and just read it. So that was all for the Opposites book tag. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I have mentioned, and as always, I will see you next time. Bye!